Black girl gives scarf to homeless woman, but is shocked when police knock on her door the next day. What would happen if a simple good deed turned into the beginning of a nightmare? This is the question haunting the mind of Amber, a 22-year-old black woman who, by offering her red scarf to a homeless woman on a cold night in Chicago, finds herself caught up in a mystery that could change her life forever. In a city where the cold cuts through the skin and loneliness seems to lurk around every corner, Amber walks down Michigan Avenue after a long day of interning and attending law school. Determination shines in her eyes, but the shadow of her humble beginnings follows her. Raised by her mother, Mrs. Davis, a woman of strong principles, Amber learned early on the importance of empathy and solidarity. However, even with all her inner strength, the young woman faces a world that often makes her feel vulnerable. That night, as the frigid wind blows through the streets, Amber spots a new figure huddled on the sidewalk, an older woman dressed in tattered clothes who introduces herself as Linda. Something in Linda's gaze sparks an inexplicable connection in Amber. Noticing the intense cold the woman is enduring, Amber does not hesitate to take off her favorite scarf and wrap it around Linda's neck, who looks at her with silent gratitude. This simple yet powerful gesture seems to seal a bond between the two before Amber continues on her way, unaware that this action would carry unexpected consequences. The next morning, Amber's cozy home is abruptly interrupted by an insistent knock on the door. Her mother, Mrs. Davis, answers and finds two police officers asking to speak with her daughter. Amber's heart races, and the image of Linda wearing her scarf floods her mind. The officers inform her that a homeless woman was found dead the previous night, exactly where Amber had been, and that a red scarf was discovered at the crime scene. Amber's world crumbles in an instant, and she finds herself dragged into an investigation that places her at the center of a deep and disturbing mystery. As Amber is taken to the police station for questioning, she meets Detective Reed, a man who, despite appearing hardened by life, manages to see beyond the facade of the young woman. The detective discovers that Linda had connections to Jack Larkin, a powerful businessman in Chicago, whose good reputation hides dark secrets. From that moment on, the search for the truth becomes an obsession for Amber, who must confront her fears and inner doubts while trying to untangle a web of lies and betrayals. In her quest for answers, Amber learns that Linda used to spend her nights in an abandoned building, and when she encounters a young woman named Maya, who also lives on the streets, she realizes that Linda had information about Larkin's illegal activities. However, Maya disappears shortly after their conversation, leaving Amber even more intrigued and determined to move forward. The difficulties and challenges Amber faces not only shape her character, but also force her to confront her own vulnerabilities and past traumas. As Amber delves deeper into this mystery, she realizes that the red scarf, which once symbolized compassion, now carries an immense weight. Amid desperation and uncertainty, the young woman finds herself faced with a choice: risk everything to honor Linda's memory and seek justice, or protect herself and her family. Amber's struggle is not only against the external forces that threaten her safety, but also an internal battle for truth and the courage to confront a system that often seems set against her. Amber sat in the police station's interrogation room, her trembling hands resting on the cold table. Detective Reed watched her with a gaze that mixed compassion and curiosity, as if he were trying to decipher the enigma that was this young woman. She felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. Linda's death was not just a tragedy. It was a burden that followed her, a shadow that darkened her path. The first moments after the news had been a whirlwind of emotions. Amber recalled the feeling of helplessness and despair as she heard the officer's words. How could a simple act of kindness turn into a nightmare? The memory of Linda's grateful look still haunted her, and now that image mingled with the vision of a lifeless body, shrouded in mystery. The investigative team was on her trail, but she could not allow fear to paralyze her. Determined to honor Linda's memory, Amber resolved that she would not rest until she uncovered the truth. However, this decision did not come without challenges. As she walked out of the police station, she felt the pressure of the city surrounding her, as if the walls were closing in. She knew she had become a target, not just for the system that encircled her, but also for those who might be involved in Linda's death. Upon returning home, she found her mother worried, her eyes filled with uncertainty. Mrs. Davis had always encouraged Amber to fight for her dreams, but the current situation threatened all the principles her mother had taught her. "Amber, you need to stay away from this. It's not worth risking your life," her mother said, her voice trembling. Amber felt a tightening in her heart. Her mother's concern was valid, but the idea of stepping away from Linda, of erasing the memory of the woman who had taught her so much in such a short time, felt unbearable. That night, as she reflected on her decision, Amber received an unexpected message from Maya, the young woman she had met on the streets. Maya had a different way about her, a strength that shone even in the toughest situations. Amber felt drawn to this new friendship, but also intrigued. What did Maya know about Linda? What connected her to the woman who was now dead? The meeting was set in a small cozy cafe, a place that Amber used to frequent when she wanted to escape the cold of Chicago. Upon entering, she spotted Maya sitting at a table in the back, her gaze attentive and alert. The conversation started off light, but soon turned into a mutual confession. Maya revealed that she had known Linda for years and that Linda had spoken about a dangerous secret involving Jack Larkin. This businessman, known for his generosity and donations, hid a dark side that few knew about. She was about to expose something important, Maya said, her voice low and tense. I don't know what it was, but she was scared of someone who was following her. Maya's words cut like a knife. Amber felt the weight of responsibility increasing. What could have led Linda to this situation? What did Larkin have to do with it? Faced with the revelation, Amber found herself in a dilemma. The friendship that was forming with Maya was a light in the darkness, but it also put her at risk. The idea of getting involved in such a deep and dangerous mystery made her question her own strength. She remembered the lessons her mother had taught her about the importance of fighting for the truth, but now she found herself in a sea of uncertainties. What was really right? And what would be the cost of her quest for justice? The tension mounted as the days passed. Amber began to receive anonymous messages, subtle threats that left her uneasy. The feeling of being watched followed her around every corner. She knew that Larkin was not just a businessman, he was a powerful figure who would not hesitate to protect his secrets at any cost. Challenges began to pile up, testing her determination and courage. The bond with Maya, while comforting, also brought Amber's vulnerabilities to the surface. She realized that behind the facade of strength lay a deep fear of failing and leaving Linda behind. Would she be able to face this giant that was Larkin? Doubts began to erode her confidence, and the nights grew longer, filled with an anxiety that wouldn't let her rest. Amber knew she needed to take action. Every step toward the truth was a struggle, an internal battle that forced her to confront her deepest beliefs about justice, courage, and the fragility of life. The journey was just beginning, and the young woman wondered if she could withstand the challenges ahead. The fight for Linda would become the fight for Amber's own identity, and she needed to find the strength she believed she had, even in the face of the approaching abyss. Amber walked through the streets of Chicago, a city that once seemed vibrant and full of life, now felt oppressive and dark. The anonymous messages kept coming, each one more threatening than the last. Be quiet, or you will regret it. Linda shouldn't have spoken. Those warnings kept her in a constant state of alert. With every shadow that passed, a chill ran down her spine. The feeling of being watched followed her like a specter, and doubt began to seep into her mind. The next day, when she met with Maya, Amber could not hide her concern. The young woman tried to appear confident, but the anxiety was palpable. I don't know if this is worth it, Maya. I'm starting to feel like I'm in danger, Amber said, her voice trembling slightly. Maya, sensing her new friend's fear, held her hand. If we do nothing, Linda's death will be in vain. We need to find out what she knew. The plan to investigate Jack Larkin seemed simple in theory, but in practice, it became a maze of uncertainties. Amber decided she would need to approach him, perhaps discover something through a casual conversation. However, while researching Larkin, she came across his impeccable public image, a philanthropist admired by many. This made her question again whether she was ready to face such a powerful figure. Before we continue with this thrilling story, take a moment to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any stories, and let us know which city you are watching this video from in the comments. Weeks went by, and each passing day without answers became a heavier burden on her shoulders. Amber began to feel isolated. Her mother, worried about her well-being, tried to protect her, but the young woman was determined to move forward. The emotional pressure was immense, and she began to feel guilty for putting her mother in such a vulnerable position. Sleepless nights became common. Her eyes carried marks of exhaustion, and her mind was always in conflict. One day, while meeting with Maya to discuss next steps, Amber noticed something had changed. Maya was more distant, her words laden with hesitation. Amber, you can't take such risks. I want to help, but I'm scared. What if Larkin finds out we're investigating? We could end up like Linda. Maya's words resonated like an echo of her own fears. Amber fought against frustration. "We're just trying to do what's right. If it's not us, then who will?" The tension between them increased, a fissure beginning to form in the friendship that had brought a little light into her darkness. The misunderstanding with Maya, combined with the pressure of her own quest, made Amber feel more alone than ever. Insecurities began to take over her, and each day became an internal battle. Would she truly be able to face Larkin? The strength she thought she had seemed to slip through her fingers. In a moment of desperation, Amber decided she needed a break. She stepped away from Maya and spent some time alone, reflecting on what she really wanted. It was on one of those lonely nights that Amber decided to visit the place where Linda used to meet with her. The park was quiet, and the cool breeze brought a momentary sense of peace. As she sat on a bench, she recalled Linda's advice about courage and determination. The pain of loss enveloped her, but it also inspired her to rise again. It was time to face her fears, not just for Linda, but for herself. With renewed determination, Amber met up with Maya again. "I'm sorry for how I reacted," she said, her voice calmer. "I was just so scared, but we need to unite to uncover the truth." Maya nodded, a spark of hope resurfacing in her eyes. "Then let's do this together. We can look for information about Larkin, maybe even find someone who worked with him." Together they plunged into a new phase of the investigation. They began searching for witnesses and former employees of Larkin, uncovering a pattern of people who had disappeared or were willing to talk about the dark side of the businessman. However, with every new lead they found, the sense of danger increased. One night, while returning from a meeting with a former employee, Amber received an anonymous call. "Give up before it's too late." The cold, threatening voice made her shiver. The challenge now was not only to uncover the truth, but also to deal with the consequences of that search. Amber realized she was approaching a point of no return, where the fight for justice could cost more than she was willing to pay. With every step, the tension grew, and the line between courage and recklessness became increasingly thin. The weight of responsibility was becoming an unbearable burden, and she wondered if she could truly withstand it all. That night, Amber lay in her bed, her mind tumultuous. She remembered the lessons she had learned from Linda, but now she found herself in a dilemma. Was she ready to face the truth, even if it meant putting everything at risk? The fight for justice was becoming not just a quest for answers, but a journey to discover who she really was and what she was willing to sacrifice for those she loved. Amber sat up in her bed, her eyes fixed on the ceiling as thoughts spun in her mind. She had decided it was time to confront Jack Larkin and discover the truth about Linda's death. However, the anonymous call she had received left her unsettled. The cold, threatening voice still echoed in her ears, a warning that she was getting involved in something much bigger than she could imagine. The next morning, while having breakfast, Amber couldn't focus. Each spoonful felt heavy, and her mother's presence at the table was a constant reminder of what was at stake. Amber's heart tightened at the thought of how much her mother would worry if she knew the truth about what she was doing. It was a fine line between the pursuit of justice and the protection of those she loved. Determined to move forward, Amber met Maya at a local cafe. The air was thick with tension, and the worry on Maya's face was evident. "Amber, are you sure you want to do this?" Maya asked, a hint of hesitation in her voice. "What if something happens to you?" Amber took a deep breath, trying to convey confidence. "I can't back down now. Linda deserves for the truth to be uncovered, and we need to know what Larkin really did." However, inside, her courage was being tested. The fear of the unknown surrounded her, but the determination to honor Linda's memory kept her steady. As soon as they left the cafe, they decided to visit Larkin's office. It was a large glass building, imposing and gleaming in the sunlight. Amber felt a chill in her stomach as she entered. The environment was elegant, but also intimidating. They approached the receptionist and, with a bit of courage, said they were there to seek information about Linda. "I'm sorry, but I can't help with that," the receptionist replied curtly, without looking at them. Amber felt frustration rising, but she was not willing to give up. She exchanged a meaningful glance with Maya, who seemed just as nervous as she was. Just as they were about to leave, a tall, well-dressed man approached. "Can I help you?" He had a friendly smile, but Amber sensed something behind that cordial appearance. "We're here about Linda," Amber said, trying to keep her voice steady. To her surprise, the man frowned, as if the mention of the name had a deeper impact than they could imagine. "Linda? What do you know about her?" He looked from one to the other, his expression quickly shifting from cordiality to something more serious. Amber realized the situation was changing. The man introduced himself as David, a former assistant to Larkin. She was investigating some things about Larkin, Maya interjected. We need to know what happened to her. David hesitated, looking around as if he wanted to make sure no one was listening. It's not safe to talk here. Meet me tomorrow night in the park. I can help, but you need to be careful. His words left Amber on high alert. She knew she was diving into dangerous waters, but the promise of answers was tempting. However, the emotional pressure was mounting like a weight on her chest. What was going on in Larkin's mind, and how far was he willing to go to protect his secrets? That night, Amber had trouble sleeping. She tossed and turned in bed, her mind full of doubts. Did she really want to know the truth? What would she do with that information? Was the pursuit of justice turning into a quest for revenge? By dawn, Amber felt more confused than ever. The determination that had once propelled her began to mix with doubt. She didn't want to put her life and Maya's at risk. The pressure of the situation felt overwhelming. What had once been a clear mission was now becoming a web of uncertainties. However, looking at the photo of Linda on the wall, Amber felt the strength of her friend by her side. Linda wouldn't have given up. She couldn't let fear dominate her. With a renewed purpose, Amber decided she would meet David. She needed to know the truth, not just for herself, but to honor Linda's memory. Together, she and Maya prepared for the meeting in the park. Amber knew things were about to change, but she had no idea how much. Reality was about to reveal itself in a way that would challenge all her beliefs and force her to confront her own courage. Whatever happened, she was determined to face it. The search for the truth had become the search for her own identity, and now, more than ever, Amber knew she couldn't turn back. Amber felt her heart race as she walked toward the park, the light breeze tousling her hair and bringing with it a chill that seemed to penetrate her bones. Anxiety followed her like a shadow, but the determination to uncover the truth about Linda's death was stronger. Beside her, Maya scanned the environment with a worried expression, her eyes scanning every corner as if she expected something bad to happen at any moment. When they arrived at the park, Amber noticed the scene was calm, with children playing and couples walking hand in hand. However, the tranquility around her did nothing to ease her nervousness. Finding David was a new step in her quest, but it also brought a new series of risks. Do you think he really knows something? Maya asked, still hesitant. I hope so, Amber replied, trying to convince herself that their efforts would be worth it. We need to understand what happened to Linda. We can't keep this a secret. The determination in her voice reflected the internal struggle she faced, the quest for the truth versus the fear of the unknown. When they spotted David, he was leaning against a tree, his expression grave. Amber felt a knot in her stomach as she approached him. He greeted them with a nod, but the seriousness in his eyes was undeniable. Thank you for coming, he said, looking around once more. We need to be quick. It's not safe here for long. Amber and Maya exchanged knowing glances, aware that they were about to step into dangerous territory. What do you know about Linda? Amber asked, her voice steady but laced with vulnerability. David took a deep breath. Linda was close to discovering something very big about Jack Larkin. He's not who he seems. I've seen things that could ruin his career. David's voice trembled slightly, and Amber realized he was genuinely scared. She was investigating a corruption scheme involving powerful people. His words hit Amber like a blow. She felt her stomach churn. This was no longer just about finding out what happened to Linda. Now there was a deeper layer, a web of lies that could put their lives at risk. And what happened to her? Maya asked, tension rising. She disappeared after meeting with someone she shouldn't have. I think she found out too much. David hesitated, and Amber sensed he was battling his own emotions. I shouldn't be saying this, but I can't stay silent. Amber felt the weight of responsibility grow on her shoulders. The truth she sought now seemed darker than she had ever imagined. What should we do? She asked, restless. We need to gather evidence, David suggested. If Larkin is truly involved, he needs to be exposed. But you have to be careful. He won't hesitate to do whatever it takes to protect his secrets. Amber looked at Maya, who was pale but determined. They knew they were getting involved in something much bigger than they expected, but the idea of not acting felt unbearable. Let's do this, Amber asserted, her voice filled with conviction. Linda deserves justice. However, as they turned to leave, a new obstacle presented itself. Amber realized she was being followed. Looking back, she spotted a familiar figure, one of Larkin's security guards. Her heart raced. Maya, we need to go now. She pulled her friend, and they both ran through the park, adrenaline coursing through their veins. After hiding in a nearby cafe, Amber sat at a table, breathless and with her heart in her throat. "We're in trouble," she murmured, the reality of the situation finally sinking in. Maya was pale, but her mind seemed to be racing. "We need to tell someone. This is too dangerous for just the two of us." Amber hesitated. Telling someone meant giving up control over the situation, but the thought of facing Larkin alone was terrifying. "What if we can't trust anyone?" Amber asked, uncertainty creeping into her thoughts. At that moment, she realized the search for truth had deeper consequences than just discovering what happened to Linda. Now it was a matter of survival. Their lives were at risk, and with every step they took, the buzz of the city around them seemed to turn into a distant echo, as if the world had closed in. Amber felt a wave of despair. The weight of responsibility was growing, and the emotional pressure was becoming increasingly intense. The search for the truth was now not just an act of love for Linda, but a fight for their own lives. And as she looked into Maya's eyes, she knew they couldn't turn back. Whatever came next, they would have to face it together, even if it meant diving headfirst into a dark and dangerous world. Amber took a deep breath, trying to calm the whirlwind of feelings that engulfed her. Adrenaline still pulsed through her veins, but there was something else beginning to blossom inside her. The encounter with David and the revelation about Linda had confronted her with fears she never imagined facing. She was no longer just a grieving friend. Now she saw herself as an investigator in search of justice, and that required a strength she didn't know she possessed. As they sat in the cafe, the situation felt increasingly threatening. The image of Larkin's security guard followed her like a ghost, but Amber had to focus. She glanced at Maya, realizing her friend was also struggling with her own demons. Maya's expression showed a mix of fear and determination. They were both at a turning point, and they knew they couldn't go back. "We need a plan," Amber said, her voice now more assured. "If Larkin is really involved, we can't risk exposing everything without a strategy." Her mind began to work, formulating ideas and tactics. This was the first time she felt in control since Linda's tragedy had begun. The fear was still there, but it didn't overpower her. Instead, the desire to do the right thing illuminated her path. Maya nodded, her gaze now focused. "I can help. I know how to use social media to gather information. We can try to find out more about Linda's connection to Larkin. If she was investigating something, there might be traces online." Maya's proposal brought a slight relief to Amber. Together they could be stronger. The idea of getting involved in the digital world was new to Amber, but at that moment she realized she needed to open herself up to help. Accepting that she didn't have to face everything alone was an important step. She remembered times when she hesitated to ask for help, but now, with Maya by her side, their friendship was becoming a source of strength. Amber smiled, a small sign of gratitude. "Let's do this together," she affirmed. As they dedicated themselves to research, Amber began to notice that each click and each piece of information was like a puzzle piece. From the pain and loss, she was starting to rebuild something new. The transformation was happening slowly, but it was real. With each new discovery, she felt more confident, more capable of facing the challenges ahead. However, the pressure was constant. The messages they exchanged became increasingly urgent. The deeper they dug, the more dangerous the game became. Amber had to confront not only the external world, but also her own insecurities. She remembered moments when she hesitated to act, fearing failure. Now, with the possibility of bringing justice to Linda, there was a new perspective. Success for her was not just about solving the mystery, but also about finding her own courage. One night, as they reviewed the collected data, Amber had an epiphany. Looking at Maya, she said, "It's not just about Linda, it's about us, about what we're capable of when we come together." Their friendship had transformed into something deep, a bond forged by struggle and determination. They were both growing, not just as friends, but as women who would not be defeated. As time passed, Amber began to apply the lessons she learned. With each small victory, she felt she was freeing herself from the weight of pain. What once seemed like just a tragedy was now transforming into a catalyst for change. She was becoming more aware of her inner strength, and through adversity, she was rising again. The final confrontation with Larkin was still to come, but Amber was no longer paralyzed by fear. Instead, she was determined to fight. The search for truth had become a journey of self-discovery. Amber learned that true wealth was not in material possessions, but in the courage to fight for what one believes in. And more importantly, She had discovered that friendship and mutual support were the keys to facing any challenge. That day, as they wrapped up their investigations, Amber felt a new understanding emerging within her. The world was not just a place of dangers, but also of opportunities to grow and overcome. And alongside Maya, she felt ready to face any obstacle that might come next. Amber and Maya found themselves in a place they never imagined they would reach. At the door of Larkin's office, Amber's heart raced and adrenaline coursed through her veins. They had gathered enough evidence to confront him, but doubt still hung in the air. What would happen if Larkin didn't react well? What if everything fell apart? "We're doing this for Linda," Maya whispered, holding Amber's hand firmly. That simple phrase solidified Amber's determination. They were no longer just two friends seeking answers. They were defenders of the truth. With one last encouraging glance at each other, they pushed the door open and walked in. The office was dark, illuminated only by the dim light of a desk lamp. Larkin sat behind a large desk, his expression a mix of surprise and disdain upon seeing the two. "What are you two doing here?" he asked with a cynical smile. The atmosphere was charged, and Amber felt that every word mattered. "We know about Linda," Amber began, her voice trembling at first but quickly gaining strength. "We know you were involved in what happened to her." The silence that followed was almost palpable. Larkin leaned back in his chair, assessing the two with a calculating gaze. "You have no idea what you're talking about," he replied with disdain. But Amber did not let herself be intimidated. "Actually, we do. Linda was investigating things you didn't want her to find out." Maya joined in, her voice steady. "And we're going to expose all of it if you don't tell us the truth." The challenge was thrown down, and Amber felt a knot in her stomach. It was all or nothing. Larkin laughed, but there was no joy in his laughter. "You really think you can intimidate me? You're just two inexperienced girls. You have no idea who you're dealing with." His arrogance was palpable, but Amber no longer felt so small. "That's the problem," Amber said, her voice raised. "We're not here to intimidate you, we're here for Linda, and for all the people you've hurt." She saw a shadow pass over Larkin's face, but he quickly hid it. "You think you can stop me? I have powerful friends." He stood up, threatening. "You have no idea what you're provoking." But Amber noticed that despite his threatening words, there was a weakness in his posture. He was starting to feel cornered. "We are not alone," Maya said, a glimmer of confidence in her eyes. "We have evidence, and if something happens to us, the truth will come out. You can't hide it forever." Amber felt the strength of their friendship there, like armor. They weren't just fighting for Linda, but for themselves. The tension increased, and Amber felt the weight of the moment. Linda's life was at stake, and now it was their turn to act. "Enough playing with people's lives, Larkin. You may have gotten away with it before, but you won't this time." The strength emanating from her was new, a testament to her journey of transformation. Larkin hesitated, and for a brief moment, Amber saw weakness in his eyes. "You don't know what you're saying," he murmured, but doubt was now evident. She realized that what had once seemed like an unshakable monster was actually closer to defeat. "If you don't talk, we're going to the police," Amber declared with new determination. "And this time we won't be silenced." The silence that followed was heavy. Larkin looked at the two of them, weighing their words. The power dynamic had shifted, and he seemed to realize it. Finally, with a defeated sigh, Larkin let himself drop into the chair. "Fine. Do you want to know the truth?" Linda was about to uncover something much bigger than you think. Amber felt a mix of relief and anxiety. The truth was about to be revealed, but the fight wasn't over. In that moment, Amber realized that it wasn't just about justice for Linda, but about a profound change within herself. She had faced fear, doubt, and pain, and emerged stronger. The journey had not been in vain. With Maya by her side, she was ready to face anything that came next, united in friendship and courage. The lessons they had learned along the way now illuminated their future. Amber was not just seeking justice, but also becoming a voice for those who could no longer speak. It was a new era, and she was determined to continue the fight for Linda, for the truth and for the friendship that transformed her. The journey was far from over, but at that moment, she knew she was capable of facing any challenge that lay ahead. The room fell silent for a moment, as Larkin seemed to lose himself in his own thoughts. Amber and Maya exchanged glances, a mix of anticipation and apprehension. Finally, Larkin, with a heavy sigh, began to speak. Linda was about to expose a corruption scheme involving powerful people. It wasn't just about her, it was much bigger. Amber felt as if the ground beneath her feet was shifting. Larkin's words echoed the pain they had faced. The truth they had sought was now before them, but the confirmation of the gravity of the situation left her uneasy. "You knew she was in danger and did nothing to help her?" Maya asked, indignation in her voice. "I couldn't," Larkin replied, the coldness of his voice giving way to a more vulnerable tone. "If I had intervened, it could have put me at risk. I thought I could control the situation." Amber realized that even in his arrogance, there was a deep fear in Larkin, a fear that somehow reflected their own struggle. "Control," Amber repeated, anger growing inside her. "You destroyed lives, Larkin. It's not control, it's an abuse of power." She felt strong, but the anger also left her confused. How could someone be so insensitive? But at the same time, the anger was also a fuel, a motivation to move forward. Maya placed her hand on Amber's shoulder, bringing her back to reality. "What we need now is the evidence, Larkin. We can't let this go unpunished." Larkin hesitated but soon nodded, his expression now darker. He turned to the file on his desk, opening a drawer and pulling out a thick folder. "This is everything I have," he said, handing the folder to Amber. Her hands trembled as she took the weight of the truth. Inside the folder were documents, emails, and photos that proved what Linda had discovered. It was the evidence they needed to take the story forward. As they left the office, Amber felt a mix of relief and anxiety. They had what they needed, but the battle was far from over. The road ahead seemed long and full of obstacles. "And now?" Maya asked, concern evident in her voice. "Now we need to take this to the police," Amber replied, determined. They knew that even though Larkin had revealed the truth, there was much more to face. The system they were about to challenge was powerful and ruthless, but together they felt stronger. As they walked toward the police station, Amber reflected on everything that had happened. Dealing with the loss of Linda was a painful journey, but now there was a purpose. She was not just seeking justice for a friend, she was fighting for a future where the truth could prevail. "Do you think we'll succeed?" Maya asked, breaking the silence that surrounded them. Amber looked at her, confidence growing. "I know it does. We have to believe that the truth matters, and that there are people who want to do the right thing." When they arrived at the police station, a knot formed in Amber's stomach. They were greeted by a police officer who seemed busy, but the presence of the two girls and the folder Amber was holding caught his attention. "What do you have there?" he asked, curious. Amber took a deep breath. "We have information about a corruption case involving influential people. We need you to take a look at this." She opened the folder, showing the documents that had taken so much work to collect. The officer fell silent, quickly reading through a few pages. "This is serious," he said, finally looking up. "I'm going to call my superior." Amber and Maya exchanged glances, a mix of nervousness and hope on their faces. They were about to take a step that could change everything. As they waited, Amber reflected on how her life had changed. She was no longer the scared girl who hesitated to confront Larkin. What once seemed a lonely journey was now shared with Maya, her friend and confidant. The weight of the pain was still there, but now there was also a sense of purpose. "If we hadn't joined forces, none of this would have happened," Maya said, breaking the silence. "Linda brought us together, and now we're fighting for her." Amber nodded, feeling the strength of their friendship. "Yes, and we won't stop until the truth comes to light," Amber declared, determination resonating in her voice. They were ready to face whatever came next, united by Linda's memory and their relentless pursuit of justice. The journey was still far from over, but now they had a clear sense of direction, and together they were ready to take on the world. Amber and Maya were at the police station, adrenaline pulsing through their veins. The officer who had quickly read the documents went out to fetch his superior, leaving them with a mix of hope and anxiety. What they were about to do could change the course of their lives, and more importantly, bring justice for Linda. When the superior arrived, a middle-aged man with a serious expression, Amber felt the weight of responsibility grow. She knew this was not just about exposing corruption, it was about honoring Linda's memory and ensuring that other lives were not destroyed. The two girls reported every detail, every piece of evidence, while the superior listened attentively. After several hours of discussions and checks, the officer looked at Amber and Maya with a firm expression. "We're going to investigate this thoroughly. What you've brought could be a turning point in a case bigger than we imagined." The determination in his words made Amber's heart race. They had succeeded. The truth was about to emerge. In the days that followed, Amber and Maya became part of a larger team. They worked side by side with the police, providing information and helping to unravel the corruption scheme that had taken Linda's life. With each new piece of evidence and every new connection discovered, the feeling that they were doing the right thing grew stronger. The fight was not easy. They faced threats from powerful people who wanted to silence them, but instead of letting it shake them, Amber and Maya grew even closer. The pain of losing Linda transformed into fuel, and their friendship deepened, creating bonds that went beyond the tragedy. They became advocates for truth and justice. Finally, after months of investigations, the day arrived when those responsible would be brought to justice. Amber was nervous but also filled with hope. The courtroom was packed with people, and the atmosphere was tense. When the evidence was presented, Amber saw Larkin's face among the accused, his expression a mix of despair and anger. It was the moment of vengeance, not just for Linda, but for all the lives affected by the scheme. When the judge pronounced the sentence, a deep silence fell over the courtroom. Amber felt a wave of relief. The people who had destroyed lives were finally being held accountable. Justice was being served, and Linda could, in some way, rest in peace. The victory in court not only brought relief, but also transformed Amber. She became a voice for those who had none, an advocate for the truth. The experience shaped her, teaching her about the strength that exists in friendship and the fight for what is right. Amber understood that true wealth was not in power or influence, but in the courage to fight for justice and the kindness one can offer to others. On the way home, Amber and Maya exchanged smiles. They had overcome not only the pain of loss, but also rediscovered themselves as stronger and more resilient people. The journey was not over yet, but they were now ready to face any challenge that came their way. The story of Amber and Maya is a powerful reminder that even in the face of adversity, true transformation comes from the courage to fight for the truth. When the strength of friendship is united, it is possible to change the world one step at a time. May this story inspire others to rise up and stand for what is right, for justice, although often delayed, is always worth it. If you felt touched by this story, share your own experiences or reflections in the comments. Your voice is important, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so we can bring more stories that inspire and motivate change. The time to act is now.